Cool. Good morning, everybody, wherever you may find yourself, and welcome to the I Work For Me podcast. I am super excited today to be speaking to Mandi Hart, who I think has the most awesome surname in the world. I love the surname Hart. I think it's it's just superb. And it turns out, luckily, that it is quite fitting of Mandi because she does have a big heart, and you'll definitely learn about all the amazing heartfelt stuff that she does. She is an author, she is a counselor, she is a speaker, she speaks on radio stations, like she's proper awesome. So very excited to have Mandi on the show today, and I think without any more splabbing, let's get straight into it. So welcome, Mandi, and thank you for chatting to me today.
Good morning. Thank you, Melina. It's good to be with you.
Awesome. Mandi, before we actually dive into the hardcore questions, tell us quickly, what is it that you wanted to be when you were a little girl?
Sure. So initially I wanted to be a music professor. Don't ask me why. I have no clue. I've always loved music and art. I cannot draw to save my life, but since I was a little girl, I would grow up with my gran playing piano, and I learned to play piano when I was young, but for some reason I wanted to be a music professor. I didn't know what a music professor did, but I wanted to be that. And then it was a lawyer, and then it was an architect. And anyway, I did none of those things.
That's amazing. But I love that it was a music professor. Obviously, maybe it was your grand's influence, or yeah. Do you still play the piano?
Well, we haven't got it where we're staying now in Stellenbosch, but from time to time I do, yes.
Oh, lovely. Okay, well, maybe there's something in that. You'll get back into that at some point. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, maybe. But now tell us, I've kind of hinted at all the amazing things that you do, but maybe you can tell us what it is that Mandi Hart does.
Yeah, it's quite varied, from writing books to speaking on the radio, mentoring people, women mostly, to yesterday I volunteered at a soup kitchen in Mandi, spent a few hours there. So my heart really is to see women thrive. And because I'm a mom, I have a passion about families, seeing families healed, restored, seeing people grow and develop. So everything I do is kind of around that, focused on seeing women discover who they are and what their passions are, whether it's through my writing, speaking, coaching, whatever it is, help them fulfill the plans and purposes that are for their lives, and not what Mandi wants for them, but what they really want for them, because every person has got gifts and talents. And I think especially as women and moms, we kind of forget about ourselves. I don't know about you, but even this morning, my daughter took my jacket and then she took my boots. And, we give all our things away to our kids and everyone else, but we don't often take care of ourselves. And I love to inspire moms and women to do that.
Yeah, no, and I connect so much with that thing of like your stuff just disappearing. Like you put things in one place as a mom, and then they grow legs, and then you find them in little bags in their rooms, So mine's not big enough to wear my shoes, but as soon as she is, I'm going to start hiding my shoes, definitely. So I totally connect with that. But I suppose I want to know, in terms of that passion and that drive to work with women, can you maybe talk to us about where that came from and how that all actually started? I mean, did you go and kind of train to be a coach, or did you do psychology at varsity? Where did that start and how did it evolve?
That's a really, really good question. I think it started many years back. As a teenager, I was bullied by girls. I never had many girls as friends. And I was telling my daughter the story the other day. I used to surf a lot. And and one day I kind of had this thought, I can't go surfing as a married woman one day with another woman's husbands. And I realized, whoa, I need to develop friendships and grow these friendships. And out of kind of that understanding, as I got older, I studied communication. I got a counseling qualification. I'm a certified coach. Kind of love learning. I realized, okay, Mandi, we've all been through stuff. We've all been hurt. We've all been through the fire, so to speak. I was in an armed robbery a few years back. And working through that trauma, I realized I'm not the only one. There's so many people that are hurting, and I want to leave this world a better place than I found it. So one of the ways I can do that is by helping other women, other moms, live courageously to overcome their pain, overcome their past, in whichever way is presented to me, whether it's volunteering at a soup kitchen or writing a book or creating parenting courses, whichever form it looks like and what's in my hand at the time, I can contribute to making this world a better place and speak into those areas that I believe we need healing and we need courage to overcome. Hopefully my story can encourage others to do the same. So I think it started probably way back when, without realizing, as a teenager, we all go through this stuff. So probably around about then those seeds were sown that kind of came to fruition only many years later, after I became a mom and I ran a mom's group and just started developing the skills, realizing I have a gift of communication and creativity. Perhaps I could use that to help others.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful journey. And I love that it started when you were a teenager, so unknowingly. And I really resound with that story. And so I feel probably a lot of other people would too, in the sense of that, I speak to some people who have these wonderful high school experiences. And, in contrast, I tested high school. It was horrible. I also had I managed to collect an armful of frenemies. And so then, going to varsity, I would make sure that I was friends with guys. I found guys much easier to be friends with. It was easy, versus complications with girls. But then as a mom, I realized speaking to a man was never going to cut it. And also at that point, realized how important friendship with women was. And so also started seeking out women and rebuilding, reconstructing, growing, enhancing those friendships, because as women, we do need each other. And so, yeah, so interesting, really.
Very much so. We really do need each other. And last year I did a talk at a local prison, to about 200 female wardens, on what is a fearless woman. It was based around gender-based violence. And I think I have this inner drive in me. Again, it comes out, in whatever's in front of you. Every single person has these gifts and these talents, but for a lot of us, they're very dormant, and we don't intentionally cultivate them. In Stellenbosch at the moment, it's pouring with rain, Melina. I know where you say it's raining as well. And I just planted some winter bulbs, and I know after this rain, when the sun comes out, they're going to start to shoot. And so I believe in each of us, we have these seeds planted, that we need the right environment to cultivate them, that they can start to come out and blossom. And I think that's what we can encourage one another as women. We can urge each other on to live like that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So in thinking about that, I suppose in progressing from feeling that need and that desire to do what you wanted to do and work with women, what was the fertile ground that helped this turn into a business? How did you make that leap to a passion to a business?
Well, my husband and I think when we first met you a year or two back, we were missionaries at the time, leading a missions organization. And a lot of the time I just gave my resources and the things I had away. I still have a heart just to give it away. But I realized only recently that when people get everything for free, they don't value it. It has to cost us something. And your story and my story has cost us a lot. I've been through tough times. You've been through tough times. It's shaped us. We kind of have these scars that maybe they like medals. There's a saying that your greatest test becomes your greatest testimony. And so the lessons and the things that I've learned, I realized if I keep giving it away, women might not value it. And so what I have to offer has value. And so the books that I create, to create a business around books and selling, means that I have more resources to create more content, to give more away where I want to give away, or to invest into people that I want to invest in. It costs to invest in myself to develop different skills. And so when I have these skills and these things to offer women, a business helps facilitate that. And also in South Africa, we have such a high unemployment rate that I believe if we can create more businesses, we can create more employment. It can boost the economy. Again, it boosts families and it helps people.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of where we're sitting in terms of the economy at this stage of the game, you know, the times of relying on just big corporates to provide us all with jobs, those, you know, those days are way over. And it's up to kind of individuals with that spark or that desire to start something, to go for it and try and hopefully employ 1, 2, 10, 50 people, you know, and create that employment and really kind of kickstart the economy and put money back into communities. So I think that's, the only way forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
The days we're living in are crisis days, and the Chinese word for is it crisis or change is linked to opportunity. And I believe we need to be more creative than ever before. There are incredible opportunities out there in these days that we're living in. We just need the eyes to see what are the trends, what's happening, what's going on. How can I have the courage to bring the gifts that I have and create a business around it?
Absolutely. And I think there is that element of, you know, looking at oneself. What is it that matters to you, and how can you turn that into a business, which is exactly what you've done. So tell us a little bit about your books, because obviously that's how we originally met, was around books at that very bizarre writing writing group that was more than interesting. Odd, yeah. But hey, it brought us together, so that's great. But I wanted to know, tell us a little bit about your books and where they come from, and because books are also a bit of a process in themselves. So share with us about your books.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So my first book, Parenting with Courage, is a parenting book, and that sprung actually out of a prayer time. I spend a bit of time in prayer, and the one day I was praying and I believe God speaks to us, and I felt him say, here's an idea for a book, write it down. And I started writing. I approached a publisher. They said yes, they want it, and there's this book. I really value cross-cultural living. As a family, we have friends kind of all over the world, and we've had men and women and families from different cultures come through our home, basically from every continent. And through, as I was writing that book, I interviewed over 100 families from all over the world, from Scotland through to the Middle East to US, various countries in Africa. And I learned a lot about it. So that kind of gave me the courage to say, okay, let me see where this goes. I ran parenting courses also in various countries across the world. From Europe, Middle East, Africa, townships all over, created some parenting courses. And that then grew. Just after kind of around about the time I released that book, my daughter and I were in an armed robbery where we were staying in Cape Town, and fear really kind of hijacked my life. It affected the way I led. We led a cross-cultural organization. So fear just traumatized my life. And I realized that fear is a tactic used all over the world to paralyze people. We can have fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of loss. At the moment, there's fear of contamination. And so what it does is it paralyzes us. We build these emotional walls around ourselves. We build physical walls to protect us from the danger. We don't go out. We build walls from relationships. And so I started to share on fear, again, in Mozambique, in Scotland, in Ghana, in Carriage, in Masipumalele, in different places around, different places around South Africa. And then this book emerged, probably as a way of my healing journey as well. It's called Courage in the Fire. I know it will be back to front, but this is the only hard copy at the moment.
Yay!
I released it now during lockdown because I really felt that fear is something that's affecting the world over. It just looks different in different cultures. In America, fear looks different to how it looks in a township here in South Africa. So I'm waiting for the printers to finish the hard copies, and then, it will be going out. I actually found out the other day, just on a side note, a lady that I don't know through Facebook messaged me and said she ordered one for her daughter in England, and it arrived last week. And so the only other hard copy is from some random lady in England. And I thought, wow, I should actually try and get hold of it to say, you literally have the only hard copy out there. And another lady in Germany messaged me and saying she ordered a hard copy and it will be arriving in the next few days. So,
Oh,
South Africa, we're still waiting for these printers to finish their job. But anyway, so that's Courage in the Fire. And I've run what I call fearless living workshops around South Africa as well. And I want to do one online because I want to urge people to live without fear. When we live without fear, we live in love. And psychologists have shown that love and fear cannot coexist in the same space. And so when we know that we're loved, we then lean into love. And especially what's going on around the world with with the race conversation, with all these things. I believe if we lean into love, then the fear around all these things will disappear, and reconciliation can happen and healing can happen in the nations of this world. So anyway, so that's my book. And then I've got another one coming out next month in a partnership. Yes, it's a new venture with Focus on the Family, and they're releasing one. It's going to be called Parenting World Changes. What? So how to raise secure kids in a complex world. And so I'm busy working on that. So if you would have thought in the time of coronavirus, I would be releasing 2 books in a matter of 4 months.
Oh my word. Geez, Mandi. Okay. So, but I think it's amazing that you're releasing them now, but I mean, I think I know a few things about books. How long have you been working on those books for? Because books don't just come together. They don't just pop out of the ether. You've been working on those now for how long?
So the Carriage in the Fire book, I've been working on for about 2 years. I was going to release it early last year, and I just felt the timing wasn't right. It just didn't work. And I think whenever we carry a book, it's like we're pregnant with a baby. Yeah. When we start in business, we're pregnant with something, and the baby will be born when the baby needs to be born. A friend of mine gave birth 2 days ago, and the little baby was 2 weeks late, but he's fine. And the baby will be born when the baby needs to be born if we take care of what we need to take care of. So this Courage in the Fire has been a long time coming, and I felt the time was now. Parenting World Changes, funny story, is a book I actually wrote also about 2.5 years ago. I've been adding to it. I did research on trends affecting families globally and the trends that will be affecting families, the big trends. And it kind of was a future-focused book. And in the book, I deal with issues like gender and inequality, the environment, online addiction. So all these things, generations, all that kind of stuff. So I felt the book South Africa wasn't really ready for some of the book. The whole gender conversation wasn't highlighted as much as what it is now. And in the book, I'm not really prescriptive, but I kind of present the theme and I say, okay, as parents, how are you going to have these conversations with your children? How are you going to build relationships and bridges with them so you have a relationship with them all till old age? We have to talk about the tough issues. At the moment, we have to speak about race in our families with our kids and process these conversations really well. It requires courage.
It absolutely does. So much courage. I mean, yeah, I think, just starting with talking about sexuality and sexual behavior with smaller children and, helping them understand what sex is and, and your family's perspective on that takes courage, because many of us didn't have those conversations with our parents necessarily. It wasn't done. You had sex ed at school and, you just figured out and put the rest together. So it takes a lot of courage to be able to have those conversations with your children. So I'm really glad that you've made this book. I feel like it'll help a lot of parents, be able to refer to something and inform themselves as well, because otherwise, how do you know and understand what the issues are that young people are facing and be able to speak with knowledge and with understanding about those things and without, old prejudice. So I think it's a beautiful book. I'm really excited to see it. Yay, go you. That is amazing. And beautiful things in terms of, as you say, now in this time of Corona. I also want to just kind of talk about your book around fear. So fear is obviously huge, and I've noticed a lot of people, how some people will cling to fear in order to find safety within it, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
And then those who just pretend like they're completely not fearful, faking it. And, and then I suppose the third option is to acknowledge that there is fear and then to try work through it. So it's very interesting that you have gone this traumatic process, which no one should have to go through. So I'm so sorry that you and your daughter had to go through this process, but in that you were able to work through that and present a book to the world, which will hopefully help anyone else who has gone through, horrific trauma. And in that process, I wanted to ask you, what were some of the things that really helped you get through? So, because I just feel like there might be a lot of people out there now who are in that state of fear, where the fear is now shutting in and also shutting out reason, I think a lot of the time. What were some of the things that, let the light kind of come through?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. So the thing that I realized with fear is it's very different to danger. Now, it might be obvious, but I just want to say it for clarity's sake. So danger is a situation that could cause me bodily harm. And, I need to kind of get away from it. And whereas fear is an emotional reaction to a situation that I think I'm in or could be in. So if we relate it to what is happening in the world at the moment, what fear does is it sits in our brain, in our mind, and in our emotions, and it causes a physical reaction in our body. Our palms become sweaty, your heart starts beating a bit fast. You kind of go into survival mode. So you can't think rationally, you can't think clearly. Some people are I know some people are so afraid, because I've had conversations with people that they literally don't want to go out at all. What fear also does is it causes on a physical level an increase of like adrenaline, and your cortisol levels rise. And when we have too much adrenaline in our body over extended periods of time, kind of that stress response, and we can't come down and dissipate, get it to dissipate. It reduces our immune system, so our immune system becomes compromised. Your legs feel heavy, you don't sleep well. So again, you end up being more irritable. It's a kind of a ripple effect. And what we need to do is realize that the situation we're in right now is something that fear-mongering and the media all feeds on fear, because fear sells. So we need to recognize these things. But one of the ways that I overcame fear and dealt with it was recognized what it was that I was dealing with. And I kind of brought it into the light. I was like, okay, I'm afraid that men are going to come in and tie me up again and attack my daughter, my family, and I again. And living in South Africa, these challenges that we have to face with the violence in our country. So, I recognize that, but also there's other fears, so then I realized, okay, well then the fear causes that I'm afraid I can't think clearly, because it robs our minds from thinking. So there's a Bible verse that says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And it's those three things that I think made a difference, because I realized I was not powerless. There were things that I could do practically, and I actually went for self-defense lessons. Just worked. I did a few things practically. I have power. I'm strong. I can overcome this. He has given me a spirit of power, of love, realizing that I'm loved, that my family love me, friends love me, God loves me, I should love me. Love heals us, and I needed to forgive those men. And so if you're battling with fear, often, for example, anger, a lot of people struggle with anger. Anger is a secondary emotion, and a lot of it is linked also to fear of loss. So if you recognize, I'm feeling these emotions, you create self-awareness, then you can recognize why am I feeling that? And then you start to deal with that. And so when I say we return to love, I don't mean it flippantly, but I really do think we need to make an extra effort to love those around us. And what does love look like? It looks different. So that's a whole conversation on its own. And then that God has given me ability to have a sound mind. And that Greek word for that is sophros. I know you never thought I'd mention Greek in a podcast, but the meaning of that is sound mind, clear thinking, the ability to think things through from one part to the end to make a healthy, whole, sound decision.
Right.
Now think of that then back into fear. So fear stops us from thinking clearly, whether it's fear of rejection, fear of contamination of this virus, fear of failure. You want to start a new business and you're too scared to try. You can't think clearly. But when you start to have that sound mind, then fear gets banished, because you're realizing, oh, it's actually just an emotion I'm feeling, or I'm actually safe. I am loved. I have got the support. I'm not powerless. There are these resources. And so there are different ways that you can banish fear. And I really believe in the power of prayer. That's a space where we can speak to God about things in our heart, and we can receive healing. And it also gives us margin as we go into the day. So sitting in some silence sometimes, just sitting, being still, because fear makes us rush and do things, or it makes you isolate yourself. Different people react differently. But in my book, I actually give a whole bunch of tools on how to overcome fear and build resilience in your life.
Brilliant. So get the book, people.
Yeah.
And I love that you say to sit in silence. And I feel, so for some people, maybe God is not for them, or whatever that may be, but it is about connecting to that silence, whether it is maybe through meditation or or to God, or whatever it is, but actually finding that time to connect with silence, with yourself, and to just be at peace for a time, and to start the day in that way, instead of kind of throwing yourself out of bed, smacking the alarm, and glugging down a cup of coffee, which
Totally.
some of us may do.
I actually have a cup of coffee right here, but I read somewhere that transformation happens through suffering, silence, and love. And if we look at those things, what's happening in the world, globally, the world is suffering. Every single person in the world is affected by a lot of different dynamics. It's really complex. It's what they call a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that we're living in at the moment.
Yeah.
And so we're all suffering. I think love, there's a shortage of love. One of the side effects, I believe, of coronavirus is we have to wear masks. And so my daughter's in matric at the moment. She's going to school for 6 hours a day. She's in masks. She has to sit far from her friends. They cannot touch. They cannot connect. As humans, we were made for connection. We were made to touch one another, for belonging. And so, just that shortage of love, when we don't know we're loved, or we don't feel that love, mentally, it really affects us. And the mental illnesses and mental health issues have really got heightened during this time. And, and silence when we sit in silence, whether you just sit and look at the view around you, or at a beautiful painting or a flower, or just sit, your heart rate slows down. You find you become in tune with your body, your breathing. And one of the things with fear is we become less aware of what's happening in our body. And our body is a very true reflection of what's actually going on inside of us. If you're not aware of your emotions and who you are and how you're feeling, pay attention to what your body's saying. Is your body tense? And how your muscles and how's your gut feeling? Yes. And when we sit in silence, we actually become more in tune with my body, my breathing, my surroundings. And it just slows us down to think more clearly.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer in what's in your head is in your body, and disease, and it's the word comes from dis-ease, and yes. So one can very quickly, just by connecting to one's body through prayer or meditation, can very easily see where you're at, and then try and work with that and try and understand that. So often we just kind of want to chuck a pill at it and just move on, but that isn't going to kind of help us at all, really. It doesn't get you any further. Okay, so beautiful advice and beautiful words, and I think that there is a lot of fear out there, and it's about understanding it and working through it, and how does one do that. And you've managed to work through that, and your output, if you want to say, from that, that transformation that you were speaking about, has been this lovely book that now you can share and do a lot of coaching and talks and group work with. So if we go back to kind of how all of that fits together as a business, what have you learned in terms of now okay, cool. I wrote a book, I put it out there, people bought it, I've now got courses. How does that, what are your learnings as a business as you've gone? Like, what are the kind of like top three or even just one thing that you've learned out of doing that you would like to share with people? So great, I've got a book, I put it out there. I didn't think about what.
Yeah. I think one of the main things, and it might not be something we've discussed before, but recently I've been realizing when I open a door, when I make a choice, it's like I'm opening a door. It leads to another choice and another decision, and my life ends up moving down a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
More and more, I'm becoming mindful that my initial choices, the DNA kind of what I'm starting, what I'm doing, needs to be really thought through and needs to be what I wanted to be. If I'm starting a business, do I see myself headed down this line? Like where's the end of, where does it lead me? If I bring out a book, for example, and I'm creating a small business around coaching and mentoring and public speaking, and creating content for that, where do I see myself in 90 days, in 3 years time? And is this where I want to be going? Because often we end up down a line and we realize, oh, I'm not doing something that's in line with my gift mix. So I think if I had to give myself advice from, like looking backwards, I'd say, well, Mandi, who are you? What makes you sad, mad, and glad? What is this inner drive? Okay, now you want to create a book around this, a content for this, these courses, to create a business around this. Where do you want to go? What is your purpose?
Right.
And then I start this business in line with that, because then I believe down the line, what I've created, it will still be life-giving for me. And I want to have a life-giving business, not only for clients, but for myself as well.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that back to purpose, because I'm quite bad. I throw myself into something often, and then there's a bit of a scramble that happens as I realize, oh, no, I didn't realize, I don't think, not sure how, and so, yeah, one does tend to learn quickly that you need to actually, pause, think, pray, consider exactly what you're doing, and then kind of go from there and build that purpose. So Mandi, if you can just share with us just a business hack that, we spoke a little bit about purpose and finding your purpose. So how did you go that process?
I think one of the things that really helped me was having a coach. So at different times, I've had different coaches help me navigate leading cross-culturally, urging me to figure out where I'm at and, what's going on inside of me. But my husband is really a good coach, and he started a number of businesses, and one of the ones was a strategic brand agency. They've won a number of awards, but he's really helped me focus. On an Enneagram, I'm a number 7. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram personality assessments. So 7s are all over the place. They have lots of ideas. Life has to be fun. So for me, I struggle to focus. And Neil really helped me with that. One of the things was going through my purpose, figuring out what it was, and then helping me direct my energies and seeing where do I want to be in the long run, and help focus on in that trajectory, because how you start shapes how things will go.
Absolutely. It is like when I had babies, in those first couple of years, I was always amazed at a woman who like fed her baby like formula out the fridge, like literally like cold water thing, and she didn't heat it up and everything. And I was just like, does your child actually drink that? And she was like, yeah, because that's the first bottle I ever fed was cold water. It was start with the end in mind. And I was like, wow. It still blows me away when I think about that example, because I had no clue. I was like, so faffy and like, didn't know what I was doing. And this lady had it like sorted. She knew she wanted to make sure that there was no faffing. And so she started with the end in mind. And I just, that stuck with me forever. And so absolutely in business, it should be the same. Start with the end in mind, it's not necessarily that you can't start small and then build up carefully, but have that bigger vision or purpose in mind and build towards that. Okay, so you mentioned that you've had a number of coaches over the years, different coaches, maybe for different things in terms of where you're at. So you obviously see a lot of value in having a coach. Tell me, like, what is it that a coach gives you that you would recommend it to someone starting a business?
If you had told me 2 years ago, or no, not 2 years, so I've had a coach like about 3 years back was the first time, that they would be so helpful. I'd be like, yeah, I can figure it out for myself. I think a coach asks questions. They don't direct you, they're from a mentor. And so a coach helps uncover what's actually inside of you through the questions they ask. And they also help focus, because they say, what is the goal? What do you want to speak about today? What's going on? And through their questions, they help you process stuff. So I think sometimes, a coach also helped me personally process like where I came from, how I was transitioning. We were moving out of a cross-cultural community and leadership on a more local level into now suddenly living in Stellenbosch in a small town, and I wasn't leading anything. And so the coach helped me transition. I think that's where a coach is really good at, is helping with transition and change, helping with setting up goals and follow through. But you have to do the work. They don't do the work for you. So they ask you questions, you come up with the answers and the action steps, and it's up to you to do the hard work. But for me, it helped me focus. I think for someone who's not an activator and maybe is more deliberative, and they don't make decisions easily, a coach could help kickstart you to get into action. Whereas for me, I'm an activator by nature. So a coach helps me slow down, which is what I actually need. So for me, I found that really helpful. I've also had a Dutch coach help me figure out what are the big 5 for the next 5 years. What are the big things I want to do physically? I'm not physically, like in my personal capacity and with business. Where do I want to go? And then how do I mix my personality assessments with where I'm at, with where I want to head? And so for me, they really help you create awareness in your life, not only through their questions, but just helping direct you. So I have a high value for coaches because it really made a difference in my life. And I still seek input from time to time in different ways, in different types of coaches, because you get life coaches and business coaches and leadership coaching, spiritual direction, all those things. And we weren't meant to live in isolation. I think the world we're living in today, we don't live in a village. We don't have the aunts and uncles and grandpas and grannies around to give you that input. So we need to look for it. And a good coach, I think, is worth their weight in gold. It's worth the investment.
I absolutely agree. There is that thing of someone kind of, we get so wrapped up, when we were talking about fear, but in other emotions too, we get wrapped up and kind of spin around inside our head trying to figure out, but we've only got so much capacity to see a certain perspective, whereas a coach brings maybe one or multiple perspectives and shows you how you can look at things differently. And so I agree with you completely. And it's also an investment. So a lot of people be like, oh, but a coach is expensive, I'm not sure I should spend that money if I'm starting a business now. But if you don't start your business properly, the coach can't help you save it at the end.
No.
So, so invest now and invest in yourself. There's no better investment, actually. So, yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you, in terms of building this business and in terms of kind of growing your personal brand, because your business is on the back of your name,
Yes.
What are some of the kind of the failures that have kind of cropped up, and how have you dealt with that and managed that, and still being true to your purpose and your brand?
I think some of the failures, that's a good question, because we always learn from those things. I think early on, I never thought where I wanted to go. It just kind of evolved. So what I mentioned about your purpose and how you start, I made that mistake. I didn't think, okay, Mandi, this is your brand. This is where you want to go. I kind of was feeling it out. So I think right up front, figuring out who you are, what you want to do, how you want to start. I think that's really, really important. Secondly, I never set proper boundaries, I guess, because if you, even now, almost the entire world's working from home, and putting those boundaries around is really hard. And being a mom to teenagers, you're kind of, it's difficult. I think for every person it's difficult. So I think that failure was probably just not putting those boundaries initially, because then I'd have ideas on a Saturday evening, and instead of just kind of packing it away, I've got my laptop out, and I think putting those boundaries in place is very helpful.
So what are your boundaries in that case?
Well, I've learned the hard way. And I think also from when we were leading All Nations, we would have a lot of meetings in our home. And so there was stuff all over the place. And my mom, the one day said to me, Mandy, your whole home feels like an office, because there were like sheets on the walls, and there was debriefing papers on the one table and brochures here. So I think some of the boundaries that I'm learning to put in place is to actually pack my devices away on certain days, to actually put all my stuff away from where we're living all the time, so it's not right in front of us. And to have the courage, I use that word often, I know, but the courage to say, okay, it's Sunday evening, now's not the time to come up with those ideas. Like, you can tell your brain switch off. Just to, because I have so many ideas. I think it's that. I think it's, and also a boundary for me is making sure I exercise. I have a very high value on exercise. Not that I spend 2-3 hours a day doing it, but I learned the power of getting rid of the stress through exercise when I was dealing with the armed robbery. And so in a way, that boundary of making sure that I'm moving and I'm active really helps me, because it helps calm my thoughts and it helps me prepare. And I think physical activity is really important.
I'm with you there. I'm also a big fan of physical activity. In fact, it's one of the things I use to sometimes solve a problem that I can't see through, besides kind of, you can pack it away and hope the unconscious will eventually figure it out. But often I sometimes can put that question kind of like, if you think of your brain as a bowl, you kind of put it in there and then go for a run or do a yoga lesson or something. And sometimes an answer comes out, it really does, or an option. And and physical health is, as we discussed earlier, so important in listening to your body and moving it. And I find that these device things, people allow themselves to be absorbed within that. So when you relax, you don't sit and relax and stare at the ceiling. You sit and you stare at your phone, and you're not then conscious of your body or your thoughts or anything like that, because you're actually you may as well be sitting and drinking a bottle of wine, straight out the bottle, because you're not actually dealing with your problems. You're drowning them in someone else's communication. So there's definitely huge space for physical activity in order to keep people away from these screens and allow their brains to kind of work their stuff out. So
Melina, on that note, what I discovered when I was dealing with the trauma of the armed robbery was our WhatsApp messages, all the social media messages boost dopamine in our brains, and our brains get addicted because we want that dopamine fix. But what happens is, as humans, we're also wired for closure. So you and I are having this conversation, we'll finish it off and say goodbye. In my brain, the joy of us talking and getting inspired then shuts down. I'm like, okay, that's finished. Now I can box it off. But because we connected all the time, our brains don't have time to close off conversations. We don't have time to come down. And so we're addicted to this dopamine and we can't relax. That's why when you're trying to relax, you have your phone with you, because we want that fix. And I think for me as well, when I run, the one time in lockdown, I was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this book launch? I had planned a speaking tour planned across the country. I was getting ready to get it into bookstores. I had literally speaking things lined up. Suddenly lockdown happened. My book, the day before lockdown, I got this hard copy that you saw earlier, and the printers now are not working. And those who were to upload it for me on Amazon was not, things weren't working. And suddenly I had to pivot. And I had to realize, okay, well, I'm launching a book. It's an investment. What am I going to do? And I ran 6 kilometers on my property, running, thinking, and because we couldn't leave. But I managed to figure different things out and did a virtual launch, and I had to adapt. And so in these times when we have to be resilient, we have to adapt our businesses. Exercise really does help you figure a few things out, and it makes the difference, and it helps us handle stress better, and which means then our creativity can increase.
Yeah, without it, there is no creativity, and I see it. It's the easiest to see in children, and I'm sure your other book will deal with it as well, where kids and screens, it's like their little brains get sucked out by that thing, and you are left with the dregs as a parent. They almost need to come down from some bizarre high after they come off those screens. And sure, it's this contradiction where you and I are having this conversation, over Zoom and through a screen, but just depending on the content and what is being put through, and that need to do it all the time, it's such a tricky thing to work with. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answers. I find myself contradicting myself all the time when it comes to screens and screen time. So it's very, very difficult, but you need to at some point put it down, put it aside, and exercise, walk around, I don't know, stare at the ceiling. So hugely important.
And I think your podcast, for myself, more and more I'm realizing our children are going to need to be entrepreneurs. We are living in a time where globally the economy is going to take years to recover. And so if you have teenagers or children in university, they're already doing online learning. My son is in varsity and he's doing learning at home. And every couple of weeks we say to him, hey, Matt, you got to come up with a business idea. You have to think entrepreneurship. You can't just think I'm going to go into a company when I've finished studying. So irrespective of how gifted and talented our children are, I think as parents, we have to start speaking those words over. Come on, be more creative. Think entrepreneurship. How could you start a business? How could you make a difference in this world by creating employment for others?
Absolutely. And I think that's great. Shame your poor son. He's not going to get off lightly, with you guys as hectic entrepreneurs. He's like, oh no, just wanted to go into corporate finance, and here we go, poor guy. He got handed the lemon. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
But getting back to speaking about a coach, the course he's doing now is actually an entrepreneurship course, but in it they get a life coach. And we said to him, make an effort to meet with your life coach, because that will help shape where you want to go in life. And so, again, even in that, I can see how we're investing in that in our kids. And I hope it will pay off in the years to come.
Absolutely. There's an investment in self, is never going to be, my parents always say to me, no one can ever take your education away from you. So every investment, it goes into you, it goes into your head, it builds the person that you will become. Every learning is an opportunity to think differently and to know more. You can't go wrong. So that is wonderful. What an amazing course. Lucky guy. Okay, that's great. And now, Mandi, I did want to ask you also, before we close out, you also are on a radio station, so you are speaking there. Does that tie into also your books? And the other question I have is, have you launched this book, your Carriage book, as an independent, or have you worked through a publisher again?
Yeah. So to answer your first question about the radio, I speak actually on courageous living. And what does it mean to live courageously? So that's kind of where I feel like that passion for me is. So I speak into courageous parenting, fearless parenting, courageous living, dealing with your fears, kind of how to live your best life yet. So yes, so the radio does tie in with that. It's kind of inspirational. Some of it's equipping, and it's also, I try to keep it relevant. So what's going on in the world, where we're at. I try and help parents have those conversations with their kids, but also it always starts with us first. So we have to deal with the issues in our own hearts first before we try lead other people. So a lot of it is around that. To answer your second question, it's an independently published book, so I'm trying to give that a go. I know you very pro that.
I'm a big fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a published book, and we'll see how that goes, but it's early days. I realized I spoke earlier about pivoting and adapting. So in a way, I feel like I'm doing 2-3 different types of launches. So I did a virtual launch where the book was only available on my website, and then I got it onto Amazon and, you know, all the global sites. So I kind of needed to do that. And then when the hard copies come, I think I'll have to do a third type of launch. But I think as an independently published author, you do have more control over your material. What I love about it is that I can give it away when I want to give it away. And I have more control over what's happening. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it is. It's probably like 1,000 times harder, but I think you kind of, but you found also just kind of publishing your book with a publisher that it was great. Sure, first bit of a launch, then there's a bit of PR, but after that, then it was like you were on your own and you had to do a lot of that work anyway. So now you have
and also
control
over the pricing.
You control your pricing. You can do a special today, and tomorrow, you know, you can put it back up to whatever price. You can really work with your target market, with your readers, and as you say, you can give it away. You know, if you've got 10 copies and you just want to kind of do another reprint and you want to share that with everyone, put it in libraries, you can. No one's going to stop you or complain. So, I am very excited about this book. I did share it on my my social media, but I'm hoping that it is going to go to lots of people in lots of homes. It's so needed now. It is really, really exciting, and I must get my aim to G and read it. I've turned into a shocking reader. I've always been such a good reader in my life, but the more I write, the less I read. It's terrible. I don't know. There are some authors out there that are such good readers, and I'm like, I don't know how and when they do it, but I read very slowly. So I will get there, I promise. Just give me time. But yeah, thank you for putting it out there. Fantastic.
Pleasure. I've been so excited because the feedback I've received is there's someone in Kenya that's bought my book, someone in Scotland, in Germany, in UK, you know, and all around South Africa and the US as well. So it's for me just, and it's gone also to Lebanon. So for me, just seeing this book go to different countries really touches my heart, because that's my heart, to impact different countries and different people.
And as you say, so relevant now. It's the right time. I'm so glad you didn't launch it a year ago, you know, when you thought it needed to kind of like go. So it's great that you've waited, because now is when we need courage, and so much of it, and what a global truth as well. So yeah, best of luck.
Thank you.
So Mandi, where can people get hold of you? So, I mean, they can obviously look for your book on Amazon or, I mean, the other platforms, but if someone wanted you to come and do a talk, or if they want to know about the workshops you run, what is the best way for someone to get hold of you?
Probably through my website, mandiheart.net. So it's really easy. It's MandiHart.net. So on it, I have an online bookshop. You can get my books there. You can also just make contact with me through that. Just, just email me, hello@mandiheart.net. But yeah, I think the best way is through the website, or on Facebook, Mandi Heart Author. So yeah, I'm around.
Great. Okay, cool. And so people can definitely get in touch that way and be part of your amazing, courageous journey. Oh, your web, I wanted to say the radio station. What radio station can they listen to you on?
So I'm on CCFM. It's just a community radio station here in Cape Town. I know they live stream it every Friday just after 11. And so that's every Friday for about half an hour. I'm on air. At the moment, it's by telephone because we cannot go into studio due to coronavirus. So it is a little different. But when things open up, I'll be back in studio. And I'm also running a parenting masterclass, so you can find out information on my website about that as well. In my heart to equip and encourage parents to just parent intentionally and with hope in this time that we're in. So I'm still creating content and seeing how the masterclasses will go. So I'll have more to talk to you about next time as well.
Oh, definitely. No, I'm already tired. So you're amazing. Thank you. All the things that you do, I think I'm going to go have a snooze. But thank you so much, Mandi. It's always great to talk to you. You're a star. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Melina. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.